Hi, everybody. It's Stephen and Walter here for another episode of So Chatty. This is episode 4, and today we're going to, first of all, review another one of my machines, which is the Janome Skyline S7. And then I'm going to talk about a really useful book that, since we've been talking about cleaning and maintaining your machines, this is a book that's been out for a number of years. It's gone through many different editions of it. And I find it very helpful for explaining exactly what your sewing machine is doing, what it's not doing, and how you fix it. And then we're going to talk a little bit about, I'm going to interview Walter, special guest, Walter. Yeah, not really, about his sewing journey. And and we're going to do some corrections from what I said about some things about the Janome M7 last week. So we've got lots to talk about. We are using a slightly different camera setting this time. We found on the playback that what we were using last time, it was a little jerky. So I'm hoping that we can avoid that. And so we actually have two cameras set up here, and you won't notice the switch much because of what we have to do, but that's fine. So I am going to do that. Well, anything you want to say right now?
No, I'm fine.
Oh, you're fine. Okay. Yeah. It took him a while to get down here and get ready. He had to pretty himself up for the camera. I'm just naturally good looking. So I'm going to switch over to the machine view. So just hang on. Okay. So you can now see my Janome S7, Skyline S7. And the reason I bought this machine was I had another machine, a lower model, that I was using for going on to retreats and classes and things like that. And it was a great little machine. It was the M100, but it doesn't have the features that this machine has. But as far as the piecing machine was concerned, it was a great machine for that. Right now my sister owns it. I gave it to her. So this is the one that I got to replace that. This is the machine that I will use to go to classes and things because it's much lighter than the M7. The M7 is not meant to be a portable machine. When you've got it placed where you want it placed, that's where it's going to stay. Whereas this one is more portable. Okay, so I have a list of things from the Janome brochure right here. That outlines the basic features. Last time I was a little bit all over the place, so I thought I'd use this as my guide today to take us through the various features. First thing I want to talk about is the aesthetics of this machine. Of course, the lid does come down and shuts, and it will shut completely. I just have a little extra little bit here that I put in, and that's why it's not closing right down. It does have a handle, as you can see, so good for, oops, you can't see if you're looking through my arm, handle here. And when you open up the cover, you have right at your fingertips all of the decorative stitches that this machine comes with. And this machine comes with 240 built-in stitches. So that's quite a few. In fact, it's probably more than anybody really ever needs. But it's nice to have them. This machine also is computerized, and this screen looks very much like the screen that's on a Janome 15,000 and of course on the M7. It's not as big as the one on the M7, but it's very clear, very bright. You can see that. On the front, your spool holder is in the top here. It's a horizontal spool holder, if you can see that. But there are places on the back where you can attach an optional thread stand to the back of this too, if you so desire. Threading it is the same as any other Janome, and there's numbers and diagrams to show you where all the thread goes. You can't see that in the video, but it's up here on the top. That's pretty much standard on most Janome machines. The thread or the bobbin winder is right here, and again it looks very much like the bobbin winder on other machines. However, this one I'm not sure if it has a separate motor for bobbin winding. Just see what they talk about here. I don't think it does. It really doesn't say. But I don't think it does. I think when the bobbin winder's engaged, you can't do, well, I can try. No, it's not. It's the same motor runs it as the needle. So I don't know if that's a big problem for people. Actually, I find when I wind bobbins, I'm not sewing at the same time. So
yeah, because a lot of times, isn't it, if you need to wind a bobbin, probably the thread that you're sewing with is the thread you want to use to wind a bobbin with.
yeah, that's true. So maybe if you're a real power sewer and you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
do things all multiple ways, I don't know. But anyways, it doesn't have that separate feature like the M7 does. And that's certainly not a make or break in terms of buying a machine like this, I don't think. So what else did I talk about initially on here? Buttons on the front look very much the same. You have a speed control, which works in conjunction with your foot pedal, or you can run this machine without a foot pedal. It's got the stop start button.
I see that you have an automatic tension thing here, right? This is automatic tension. It doesn't have a knob, right?
No, it's automatic. Yeah, this is an automatic tension, and this is a computerized machine too, and we'll come to those screens in a minute. It has built-in thread cutter, automatic thread cutter, up and down foot, up and down needle. It has a lock stitch, so when you come to the end of your row, if you hit that, let's do a little sewing here, it'll lock your stitches in. But what it doesn't do is raise your foot and cut the thread. It will raise the foot when you hit the scissors, but unlike the M7, that's all one stop process. When that finishes doing the lock stitch on the M7, it lifts up it cuts the thread and lifts up the foot as well. So this doesn't have that feature. Again, unless you are used to a machine that has that feature, you're never going to miss it.
Can you program it in?
I don't know if you can. We'll come to that in a minute and take a look. Don't jump ahead. I'm trying to be organized here. Okay. So it does have a reverse as well, and it does have an automatic threader, automatic needle threader. And it's pretty much the standard one that's on most Janome machines with the exception of the 15,000, which is totally automatic. You push a button. Now, just as an aside note, here's something you need to expect on any sewing machine, not just Janome. They have yet to perfect these needle threaders, and you will have a problem with it eventually. It will stop threading. There's a little wire in here, which is so tiny you can't even see it, that simply goes through the hole of the needle, grabs the thread, pulls it back through. That's how it works. Not unlike one of those little hand cartridge needle threaders that you can buy. Don't get discouraged. This is a common fault in all sewing machines. They've yet to perfect that. In fact, on my M7, it's the automatic needle threader doesn't seem to be working. Again, you can take it in, get it adjusted by a technician. You can't adjust it yourself unless you're a technician because they are very, very fiddly. Also, read your manual very carefully. It tells you what threads you can use with it, and it's a very limited number of threads, of sizes of threads that you can use, and needles as well. It all works in conjunction with it. It is not an exact science. So my recommendation to you is when your needle threader goes, and it will go, don't throw your machine out. Either get yourself a threader, a manual threader, or if you've got really good eyesight and steady hands, you can thread it by hand. Too. Walter threads his by hand a lot. I can't do it. I can't see.
My 6700, the needle threader's never gone bad on it. I use it all the time.
But you use the same type of thread all the time.
Pretty much.
And same type of needle.
Yeah.
Pretty much like that. Yeah, that's what I mean. If you veer away from that, you are going to have a problem. And it doesn't take much to put that little wire out of alignment. And believe me, I have tried to straighten the wire and get it realigned, and it's impossible. It's impossible. Yeah. You need to be a technician because they've got tricks in how they do it. Okay, so that's the outside of this. It does come with a stylus up here I took out my stylus from my other machine because I forgot this one had one, because I seldom use the stylus, but the stylus is good for, if your fingers are a little bit on the bigger side, you may not get things exactly in there, so the stylus is good to have. But do not use anything else, either the stylus or your finger. Don't use any other thing in your hand. Like, don't use your stiletto, don't use a screwdriver, don't use your seam ripper, because you will scratch up your screen and cause damage, because this is a touch screen. So think of it like on your iPad kind of a thing. Okay, so running down, oh yeah, the other thing too is you see this does not come with the machine. This is an option. I had to buy it separate. It can be pricey depending on where you get it. Luckily for me, I buy my machines at Ultimate Sewing, and I was expecting to pay about $250 for this extended table. It only cost me $150 because I bought the machine at Ultimate Sewing, and because I bought the machine there, she was able to give me a discount.
Didn't that package with the table come with a bunch of different feet too?
Yeah, it doesn't just come with the table. It's a quilter's package, they call it, and it comes with some quilting feet and some other little bits and bobs as well. We'll talk about the feet in a moment. It does come with a soft cover case for it, which I never use, but I mean, because I'm constantly using my machines. But if you're worried about dust and things like that, you can throw that over the top. But it's not a carrying case for it. If you want a carrying case for these machines, you have to buy a separate one. And maybe in a future episode, we will talk about the type of carrying bags, roller bags that we have for our sewing machines, because they are pricey little items as well. Everything in sewing is pricey, believe me. But it's a hobby. We love it. Okay, oh, and the other thing too is, right now you can't see it, but this is a free arm. So this is great if you're doing garment sewing or you're doing bag sewing. However, in order to use your free arm, you have to remove the extended table, obviously. However, if you don't have an extended table, it does come with a piece that fits in here and has a little drawer in it for keeping your stuff. But you can't use that piece if you're using the extended table. So you get more space on the extended table, but you don't have any storage. So it's a trade-off. It's whatever's more important to you. For me, the extended table is more important than having the little extended, the little drawer. However, having said that, if you're taking this off to a class and you know you're going to be in very close confines, you might want to just put the drawer unit back on so it fills in this space in around here. And that's still a fair amount of space to work on, and not take your extended table, because then you have your drawer and you can put your feet in it and your extra bobbins and things like that. So, you know, it's a little bit more compact. Again, it's up to the individual what they like. Okay, I think that's everything on the outside. Oh yes, there is a hole here for a knee lift, and it comes with a knee lift as well. And as I said before, I don't use a knee lift. Walter uses a knee lift on his.
Not very often, but I do use it once in a while.
And the foot pedal with this does not come with an automatic thread cutter attachment, extra foot. Now you might be able to get one for this, but it's an optional item. And again, I don't worry about it because as I've told you before, I don't use that feature. I'm used to hitting the button. Okay, so what are they telling us that this machine has? Top loading full rotary hook bobbin. Yeah, well, they all come that way on Janome's. 240 built-in stitches. Yep. 11 one-step buttonholes. It does come with a buttonhole attachment, just like the 6700 and the 15000 and the M7. That will allow you to put a button in that holder, and it will make your buttonhole exactly the right size for that particular button, which is kind of nice. Now, I haven't used that very much, but you have, haven't you?
Yeah, I've used it quite a bit, and it does a really nice job. You just put the button in, and it even has an adjustment on it that you can make it slightly bigger and smaller depending on maybe your button's extra thick and it's harder to get through the hole or something like that.
And this machine has that feature as well. They say that it has 7 built-in alphabets. There's a USB port for adding stitches. Now, it does come with a program, a CD-ROM, that allows you to compose your own custom stitches. And you do that on your computer, and then you save it to a USB drive, and the USB drive goes into the side here, and it can be pulled up onto the screen of your computer. Again, that is something I really have not played with or used very much because I have not had a need to. There's automatic thread tension, as we already mentioned. Snap-on presser feet, easy set bobbin. All Janomes are like that. I'm just skimming down here. It has a memorized needle up and down, so you can set this, and you can do this on most of the machines that are from the 6700 and up. if you want to leave your needle down, which a lot of people like to do when they want to go around a corner, they want to pivot, or in the case of free motion quilting, that's always a good thing to have too. So you can set that up to either be on or off. Now I think I don't know, do I have mine set? Yeah, I have mine set already, so that because I'm so used to that, so that my needle will stay down.
I do that too. My 6700, I have it set so the needle stays down.
It's one of those features that you might at first glance think, well, who cares? What does it matter? Actually, it does matter.
Yeah, especially if I'm sewing something and I want to use it to turn a corner, it holds my everything in place for me to flip it to a corner.
Yeah, and when you're free motion quilting, the same. You only go so far and then you stop. Well, if the needle comes up, your quilt is going to shift and you're not going to go down in exactly the same spot as where you left off. So once you've had that feature, you won't know how you lived without it. There's a 7-piece feed dog. Now that means there's 7 feed dogs under here. My M7 last week I told you has 12, which avoids the problem in many cases of the points of your fabric being sucked down into the machine, into the plate. You can avoid that with a leader piece, and that's what most people do, but it's nice. This machine, even though it doesn't have 12, it only has 7. I don't have as great a problem with that as, say, when I had the M100. The M100, yeah, you definitely needed a leader for that because there were less feed dogs. One-step needle plate conversion. Okay, so this is when you want to change out your needle plate. Okay, so there aren't any screws in this, which is great. There is a button. I have to find it. Where's the button? Where's my button on this one? There is a button. Button. I can't find the button. Oh, there's the button. Okay.
And then you just trade your microphone across
That one's not on. So, oops, I took off my foot. But there's your plate. And the inside of this looks the same. I know you can't see. It's got, the bobbin case, the bobbin, the whole bit. It comes with, it came with 2 plates. It came with the zigzag, which I have in here right now. And it did come with the straight stitch plate. But when I bought the extra kit to get with the extended table, what's it not liking? Yeah, the right presser foots. It likes to warn you to make sure that you don't do anything wrong. It came with the HP plate and the high performance foot that goes with that. Okay, so what else can we tell you about it? Dropping your feed dogs. This is not automatic. You don't have it on here. You have a switch over at the side. So you pull the switch towards you to drop them or to put them back up. You just push it the other way. But it's not automatic, or it's not in the program for this. It has the speed controller. I've already talked about that. Automatic foot pressure adjustment. Most of this stuff I've talked about. Okay, the lights. There are 3 lights under here, and I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Maximum stitch width on this machine is 9 millimeters. That's the stitch length on the M7, and width. On the 15th, the what?
It's the width.
Yeah, what did I say?
You said the length.
Oh, I meant width.
It means that's how far your needle goes.
Yeah, it goes back and forth with it. And you can adjust the needle if you've got the right foot plate into it, to the right or to the left as well, which is a nice feature to have. All the higher end Janome machines have that feature. Maximum stitch length, they say, is 5 millimeters. And maximum speed, this always breaks me up, 1,000 stitches per minute. I don't know how many people sew at that speed. I mean, that's fast. That's fast. You can't keep up with that. But I guess if you're a power sewer, maybe you can. And it says the workspace is 8¼ inches by 4.7 inches. I think what they're measuring is throat space here from the needle, from the center of the needle to this wall is 8¼ inches. The 4.7, I guess this must be 4.7. They're counting that in there, which I don't know why you'd want to know that. You get, of course, mind you, you do get when you get the extended table, that extends that out a little further. Now, it's not a bad throat size. You could do a small quilt under here if you want to use it for quilting. Placemats, table runners, no problem. Personally, I think this is too small for anything bigger than a throw in terms of a quilt for it. But
even garment sewing, I have the 10-inch throat on the 6700, and even that, like if I'm doing a big coat or something like that, it bunches up.
Yeah, so but then that's still bigger than some. Yeah. So it's not a bad size with it. What else do they say? Oh, they call the cover that comes with it semi-hard. Well, it's not. What they mean by semi-hard, it's made out of a piece of very strong vinyl-like leather type thing, and it's got a piece of plastic in it as an insert that makes it a little bit more rigid. But yeah, it's just for dust. It's just for dust. Okay, so menu screen. Looks very much like the other machines we've been showing you that have a computerized screen. If you go into applications, you've got seaming, overedge, blind hem and shell tuck, rolled hem, zipper, gathering, and down below you have some arrows going one way or the other way, and you just click that for the rest of the menu. Basting, buttons, tacking. I just learned what tacking was from Walter yesterday. Applique, patchwork, quilting. And it goes back to the beginning. Now let's just back up here and go into quilting for a second. So you have straight stitch, a clasp stitch, free motion quilting, and I do have the free motion foot. That came with the extended table. And then there's your hand look stitches, if you wanted to give it that hand look. And there's a veritable zigzag, which works with, and I've never used it, with your knee lift. So you have quite a few things as a quilter to pick from. Patchwork. I guess you can memorize. If you're doing a whole lot of like chain piecing or all the pieces that have the same length of stitch in that, you can program this in and away you go. I don't use that feature, never have used that feature. I'm not sure if it's a good thing or not. I don't have any problem remembering what my stitch length is going to be, but it's there. So the buttons, just show you here, tells you to lower the feed dog when you're using that, and it shows you regular or shank. So if you're doing a regular buttonhole, you would pick that one. If you're doing shank, and it just switches over. There's a little piece that goes in underneath that comes with it. It also tells you the foot that you should use for this. And if you need to adjust the length or the tension or things like that, you can do that all in here. Your instruction book will tell you how to use the actual little bracket that you put on the machine for doing your buttons. But I'm telling you, once you've done a buttonhole or sewn on a button using your machine with it, you won't go back to hand sewing and doing it. No, not at all. So it has all these others. Applique. So you have your various applique stitches here. You want them in the center, to the right, whatever. They're all there. Now, if we go back into that, and let's go right out of that. Let's go into the different stitches. They group them, just as I explained with the M7. So if you want some decorative stitches, for example, you go into the decorative stitch, and here you go. And they correspond to what's up in the chart above. And it shows you here on the side what the stitch is going to look like. If you're going to, it has a default for each stitch. Usually these kind of stitches, it'll default to the widest, which is 9mm. But you can reduce that, and it'll show you on the screen and I hope you can see this, as I go down in size, what it does to what the stitch looks like. So you can play around with that. And you can also play around with the length. So you can have a lot of fun with this to get just exactly what it is that you want. And again, it shows you below. I'm just going to put it back down. Doesn't matter because it'll go to the default when I get out of this. But it shows you the foot to use as well. And then you've got the quilting, you've got satin stitches, heirloom, applique, something called bridge, long stitches, pictograph stitches. Pictographs are kind of fun because they've got quite a few, like car, little house in a tree. You even got spool of thread, pussycat, scissors. They're kind of fun to play around with, especially if you're doing something like a little border trim or something on a tea towel or on, you know, a bath towel or something like that, or, you know, on the pocket of a shirt or something. Those might be very interesting to use. And then there's something called play. And these are combination things that are a little bit wilder. Like this one spells the word sweet, love, and you can combine some of these to get handmade, you know, if you wanted to do a label for a quilt or something like that, or into a garment. So there's lots of potential there as well. This takes you back to the very beginning again with your basic stitches as well. And if you want a monogram, you can pick from block, script, or 9mm block, which means they're much bigger. Let's go into those ones. So you can put in whatever you want. You can use upper, lowercase. I'm just using all uppercase at the moment. And I can change the size. That's in large. I can go to small. You won't see a difference on the screen here when you do that, but you will when you sew it out. And you can save it as well internally to the machine. So if you something, you know, handmade by Stephen, and I want to come back to that many times, I just push one button and it's all there. I don't have to reset it up each time. Okay, so let's move down to the settings. You have screen contrast, so you know you can adjust this for your eyes, whatever's best. Common settings. Up here, if you look, it says 1 of 4. So that means there's 4 screens. And to change screens, you just go down here to the right and left arrows to go forward or back. You can change your measurements from inches to millimeters. I have it in inches because that's what I'm most comfortable with. There's a standby timer. I have it turned off at the moment. But if you were to leave your machine, you can turn that on. How do I turn that on? There we go. The maximum is 30 minutes. So after 30 minutes, if I'm not do anything on my machine, it will shut itself off. But I've got that turned off. There's a touchscreen calibration, which is self-explanatory. It's, you know, shows you points on your screen so you can, it'll work more efficiently in case it gets a little out of alignment. There's format, you know, do you want to save stuff to the sewing machine itself, which has a very limited memory, by the way, or to a USB, which is a better option, really. Quiet mode, you hear it right now, the sounds it's making, but if I turned the quiet mode on, then you wouldn't hear any of those beeps. I kind of like the beeps. Now I want to show you the sewing lights. So you have 3 sewing lights. I don't know if you can see this in the diagram, but there's one here, one here, one here. Now you can turn them all off. I don't know why you would. Or you can just turn on whichever one you want to use. Again, I don't know why we have those options, because personally, the more light the better, I find.
Well, who knows? There may be some people that, for some reason, they don't like the light or something.
Maybe. I don't know. But anyways, okay, so the last screen, just background color. I've got it set up what they call white, but I could go to pink. I could go to yellow. Again, that's a cosmetic thing. I don't think that would make or break whether or not you want to buy this machine. I guess it's there because they could. And if you've been playing around with all the settings on this and you just decide, I want to start all over again, you hit yes, it'll reset everything to the defaults.
Could be that someone has problems with seeing certain colors.
Oh, maybe.
It gives them a better contrast.
Yeah, maybe. So, anyways, I've never used those. So you have all of that. You have the folder, which now in here there is, I have put in one. Oh, I guess I didn't put one in. And it's asking for the USB drive. But that's where you put your, if you've created any files in terms of like on the Stitch Composer. That's how you would get to those. And of course there's the lock key, and that just puts the machine in the mode to be threaded or to change your bobbin out or whatever. It's just a safeguard so you don't get your fingers under the needle and pierce yourself, which I think is a good thing. Oh, raise the needle slowly because there we go. And that's one thing about it. It tells you along the way. So if suddenly go to do something and your machine's not responding, look at your screen. It means there's something you didn't do, and it'll remind you of that. You may find that a little annoying when you first use the machine, but over time you'll appreciate it. So I think that's about everything. Since we've already talked about several other machines, they all work very much the same. They just have a few extra features. Now, as far as feet are concerned, it does not come with a box. I bought this box separate. It's one I've had laying around for years from something else. So that's what I keep my feet in. Now, if I was using the drawer, there would be room to put most of this stuff in the drawer. But because I can't use it with the extended table, I don't use it. I use this box instead. There's my straight stitch plate. The HP plate, I told you it came with it, but maybe it didn't. I mean,
I don't think this one
no,
does.
I'm getting that mixed up with the M7. So no, I think you can buy it though. It's an option. There is a ton of feet. And it has all the feet that you come to expect, the standard feet with any of the machines. But it does come with the dual flex system. And we talked about that before. That's your walking foot. A very good thing to have. But it only comes with the one. It doesn't come with the smaller one. Again, that's an option that you can buy. But once you've used one of these, you'll use it a lot for a lot of things, a lot of applications.
Yeah, actually, I use it a fair bit in garment sewing as well.
It came with, now, this is a little package that came with the table, and it's the quilting package. And there is a darning foot or free motion quilting foot. It's the same thing, and some other extra little accessories for that. Thing is, I got duplicate because I already had some of those. So there's, oops, get it in the shot here. So there's the one that's the darning foot, or as we call it today, the free motion quilting foot. So I already had a lot of the feet that came with it. I bought it principally for this because I wanted that. But yeah, I'm not going to go through all the feet with it because you can go online, and I have a link in the show notes below, and you can go to Janome and you can look up all of the accessories it comes with, and you can also find the ones that it doesn't come with that are optional that you can get from your Janome dealer. What else can I say about this machine? I really like it. It sews very nicely, and as I said, it is heavy, but it's not so heavy that you can't transport it to a class. Yeah, anything you want to add to this?
No, I think it's the Skyline models. There's a group of models that are called Skyline, right?
Yeah, there's the S3, S5, S7, which is this one's the S7,
yeah.
And then there's the S9. The S9's a special machine. It's a combination embroidery machine and sewing machine. Kind of a baby version of the 15,000. I've never used it. It has smaller hoops. They're not as big as the 15,000.
The largest hoop on that 9 is 6.7 by 7.9. So you don't have very many options for hoops for that one. It's So I guess it just gives the opportunity for somebody that likes to sew, if they want to do an embellishment that's an embroidery or something like that on their clothing or something, without having to go all the way up to a really expensive model.
Yeah. The only thing that I would say, though, and I don't know this as a fact because I've never had my hands on an S9, but with the experiences that I had with the 15,000, I would be somewhat apprehensive about buying a combo machine, a machine that does both embroidery and sewing. I think it's too many things to go wrong with it. But having said that, I don't know. I can't say for sure how that works with the S9 because I don't know. So I'm just going by my experiences with my 15,000, which weren't good experiences.
Yeah, because the S9 has the embroidery unit that goes in the back, just like the 15,000.
Okay. Well,
and each of those models, the 3 and the 5, there's a 3, a 5, a 6, a 7, and a 9. And of course, each model from the 3, as your one with, has the minimum amount of options on it. The design of the machine is very similar, but you don't have as many features on S3. And I think the S3 is the only one in the grouping that doesn't have a 9mm width. It's a 7mm width.
And we were talking earlier yesterday about when you're buying a machine. Shirley told us when I bought my first machine, buy what you can afford, but at the same time, don't cheap out, because you may say right now, oh, well, I don't need it, all those decorative stitches. Well, yeah, that machine has other features though as well, which you will grow into.
I mean, sure, you have a lot of decorative stitches here, and some people might look at it and say, oh, I don't need all those decorative stitches. But then the S3 only does have 3 options for buttonholes, where here you have about 7 or 8 ones, right? And the S3 doesn't come with all the feet that came with your machine.
And if you're talking only a few $100s more from the machine you're looking at and to the machine, the next model up, you're putting a lot of money into these sewing machines anyways. What's a couple of $100s more for something that you're going to grow into? I think it's an investment. So don't cheap out, because you're going to find, why do I have so many sewing machines? Because I keep growing into them. They come out with ones with other features that I think I would like. So that's why I have so many machines. Okay, I'm going to switch cameras, so just hang on a second. Okay, so now you can see us. So that takes us to the end of the review on the S7, Skyline S7. Next week, I think what we might do is talk about sergers and cover stitch machines. And we'll use Walter's machines to show you what is involved in those, because actually he has more experience on a serger than I do. And of course on the cover machine, I've never touched it, and he'll explain what that is.
Not necessarily. You do rolled hems, I don't do rolled hems.
Oh my goodness, you don't do rolled hems. Ooh, I haven't done a rolled hem in a while. But anyways, that's what we're going to talk about next week. But we're not done yet. Yeah. We're talking about the importance of keeping your machine clean and maintaining it, and sometimes you have problems that you can solve yourself. I want to recommend to you this book. It's called A Field Guide, You and Your Sewing Machine. It's by Bernie Tobisch, Tobisch. I have a link to this book in the show notes below. Excellent book. This man has been doing this kind of repair for like 40 plus years. He knows what he's talking about. This book is generic. It doesn't talk about any specific models or any specific brands. But that's okay, because most sewing machines, the basics of them all work the same. So if you're looking for, you've got a problem, your thread keeps breaking, you've had something go funny with your bobbin case, whatever, check it in this book first. There may be a solution to your problem. It may be something very simple. But it also talks about how sewing machines work. And I've read that section on it, and it's something good to know, I think. So he starts off with getting to know your sewing machine, how a stitch is formed, sewing systems and hook types, mechanical versus electronic versus computerized, and it goes through. And then it has a section on questions to ask when buying a new sewing machine. which is very helpful. Then he talks about the feet, using the right foot, cleaning and lubricating, other maintenance, tension, uh, needles and threaders and automatic thread cutters. Um, I should look at that one on thread cutters. I wonder if there's anything in there. I know, I think I did look at that. Uh, but about the buttons and everything, it's all illustrated. It's got great pictures, actual photographs of the parts he's talking about. This is not something that I would suggest you read from cover to cover, except you might want to read the introductory chapter on, how a sewing machine works and what you should know about buying a sewing machine. But from there in, you can go to the index or the table of contents, and if you've got a problem, see if you can find it there, look it up, and see what it tells you. Um, it's worth the money. I think I paid, in US funds, it's $24.95. I think on Amazon, which is where I got it originally, and that's where I've put the link, I think in Canadian dollars it's about 35 bucks. I think it's a good investment to have this. It's a good reference manual. And he also has YouTube videos that go along with some of this as well that you can find. So highly recommend it. So it's called You and Your Sewing Machine, a field guide by Bernie Tobisch, Tobisch. Links in the show notes. Okay, so I want to do a correction. Last week I was talking about the feed dogs and putting them up and putting them down in the computerized system. And on the system, there was that little icon at the top that had looked like little triangles facing down on a double line. Well, I was wrong about that. I was trying to figure out what that does. That works with your dual feed system. So when you push that button, and you can't see it because I'm pushing it here, but it'll ask you to make sure you've got the right foot in, and it'll tell you that you need the dual feed. And what that does is it activates the dual feed. So that, because on the dual feed you have feed dogs on the bottom, but also you have feed dogs on the top. So it pulls layers of fabric through more evenly. So that's what that particular button does. I was wrong about it. And actually, I forget who it was sent me a note about that. And I looked it up in the book. Use your manual. And
Actually,
discovered
I
that.
was a little confused because on that symbol on my 6700 doesn't mean dual feed, as far as I know. I think it's I have a knob at the side that drops my feed
Yeah.
dogs, and it uses the same symbols.
Oh, well, anyways, check your manual for
Yeah,
it.
I'll have to double check that
Yeah.
as well.
But actually, I was using that key the other day. I was quilting, the quilt behind me, actually, on the M7. And I had a problem. My quilt wasn't being pulled through properly when I was using the walking foot on it. And then I thought, oh, wait, I didn't have that button on. When I'm putting that button on, no problem. Learn something new every day. Okay, so now it's time to do a quickie interview with our special guest. Now, a special guest, he's here every week, but it seems like I've been doing all the talking. Well, it's my channel. So I thought you might be interested to know how Walter got into sewing. I think if you've watched The Idiot Quilter, you've heard me tell you the story of how I got into quilting, but probably not Walter. So, Walter, why did you want to sew?
Well, it's kind of hard to explain, but when I was a little kid, right, my mother always used to get my sisters to sew their own garments and stuff like that. And when I was
Oh,
little,
and you wanted to dress?
no,
No.
I didn't, but I would sometimes help out. I mean, I was looking at home. My mom was looking after me, so on a rainy day or whatever when she was sewing, um, she'd have me help her cut out a pattern or something like that. And in those days, you had electric scissors. I thought they were kind of cool. And so she got me to help cut out a pattern or something once in a while, not always. And my mother had this really old sewing machine that was a hand crank, right?
Mm.
Big wooden box and all that, right? So she would set up her sewing at the kitchen table, and often when I was a little kid, you're either watching TV or you're sitting at the kitchen table, right? So I would watch her manipulate the sewing machine, and she would sometimes. I was fascinated on how you wound a bobbin on one of those things, and so she would get me to wind a bobbin every once in a while, and I fiddled around with the sewing machine and sewed couple of little patches of stuff once in a while, but I never really did anything constructive, right? Until when I moved into a house on my own. Um, at the time, I needed curtains, so my sister, who sold a lot, made me some simple cafe curtains there, and I was kind of impressed by it. And so then when I moved in with Steve, um, my mother stopped sewing because she couldn't see anything. So I took her old sewing machine. I asked her. She told me, "Why don't you take my old sewing machine?" And I wanted to make a few curtains for our home then, and so I did that. But they were simple cafe style curtains and stuff. Plus, I also used it to recover some chairs, and later on, I used it to make some Halloween costumes.
Yes, we won prizes for those
And
Halloween
but I
costumes.
never really sewed. Like it was more of a I wanted something that required sewing, and ended up making it. But all the time, it was just simple um, sewing and that. So I left it, and then when we moved into this house, I made some curtains for this house, and I left it, and it was just not something I was doing as a regular hobby or anything like that, and didn't really revisit it again until Steve started sewing. So after my sister passed away, one of my sisters passed away, who was heavily into sewing. Um, we got one of her, a couple of her sergers that she had, and they were sort of sitting around here gathering dust. And then, sort of when I guess Steve retired, he decided to resurrect one of them, and started messing around with it, and sort of got the hang of it. And then you ended up buying a cheap sewing machine, and you ended up getting into quilting
Yep.
and stuff. And so then I was doing at the time stained glass a lot, and but the lady that had the stained glass store closed up shop, and I didn't really have any place to go, so I wasn't really motivated to do it on my own. So I had always had that interest in doing something sewing. So Steve got into quilting, and he got going at that, but and he ended up buying one sewing machine, which then he replaced with another sewing machine, and I sort of ended up with that.
That was a 6700.
Yeah, with a sewing machine that he was no longer using, and so I thought, well, I try some quilting, and I took a few classes, and it was okay, but I just didn't really have any motivation to do that. So I got to thinking about it and thinking of the days when I was a kid cutting up patterns and stuff for my mom. And I always had an interest in learning how to sew a man's shirt, but it seemed to be a really I would have thought a very complicated process to do. I bought some books on it, but still, again, I never really got into it until one of these guy that we know got into sewing, and he started making garments, and he started teaching classes. So I started taking the classes, and that's when I really sort of got more into sewing. And for me, I like garments better than doing quilts. So
Yeah. But in between stages of when you decided you didn't want to do quilts and before you really got into majorly making men's clothing, you're doing bags.
yeah, actually, I got into doing bags as well, and I like that too. I mean, everybody needs bags, so
And that led you into buying an embroidery machine.
yeah, I did. Yeah, I always
I
was
pushed them.
I was always fascinated with embroidery because my sister that passed away had an embroidery machine, and in those days they were really
Clunky.
yeah they were fairly new to automated or home embroidery type things, and um, they've gotten a lot more sophisticated over the years. So and you could she I think only had little tiny hoops and stuff when she had the machine, but I always was fascinated with that. And so at first I was hesitant to get an embroidery machine, but because I was thinking, well, what am I going to use it for? Right. And, but actually I did get it, and I've used it a fair bit, and I'm fascinated by watching it. So it's a machine.
Yeah, they do mesmerize you. You'll spend hours staring at your machine.
So then as I got into the garment making, I ended up buying more machines because I ended up No, yeah, I ended up replacing. I was using the old serger that my sister gave to us, or we got from when she passed away, and but it was an older design and didn't have as many features as the new ones have. So I kind of always wanted to replace that one. So a few months ago, I replaced it with a new model, and also with garment sewing, there's if you want to do hems and stuff, there's a machine called a cover stitch machine that makes hemming a little easier.
which we're
So
going to show you next week.
so I got one of those as well, but I just got a fairly basic model, so it does what I need it to do. So
So, anyways, next week then, we're going to show you the cover machine and the serger that Walter uses and talk about what's similar and what's different about them. Um, because I don't know a heck of a lot about the cover machine. Uh, I have a serger as well, but I don't use the serger very much. And I've
uh,
never used the cover stitch machine because I don't see any purpose for it for what I do.
mhm.
But obviously, it is something that's important to garment sewers and things like that. But anyways, my idea was to get him into quilting at one point so we could take classes together. And I thought, oh, great, we can make quilts together and all things like that. Yeah, no.
I don't like the maybe it's too precise for me. It's piecing doesn't actually. The one thing that does sort of appeal to me for quilting, but I still haven't done it a lot, is
Actual quilting.
the actual quilting, the free motion stuff and stuff like that, which I should try and get into a little bit more.
Well, if we had a long arm, we do that. Yeah, we don't have a long arm.
But
Uh,
I don't really piecing quilts don't really inspire me.
See, I like doing that part. I don't mind the quilting part either once I get into it, but anyways, that's something I've discussed on the Idiot Quilter, so I'm not going to get into it here right now. But yeah, so he makes garments. Now you're saying that you think quilting is so precise. I think garment sewing is more precise than quilting. I
No,
think it's
you can.
fiddlier.
It's more. I think there's more room for error.
Well, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, so that's Walter's journey into sewing as well. And as a result, we collect sewing machines. We have 9. So, and that's not counting the ones that are in our crawl space that
And we
no one
have
uses
two
anymore.
separate sewing areas. I have
Yeah,
my sewing area, and he has his.
and
So
we're in my sewing area right now, which is the dungeon because it's part of Walter's
I
workshop.
mean, the only time I have a crossover of using Steve's area for cutting is much larger than what I have, and so I occasionally, when I need to cut out a pattern, use his cutting
Well,
area.
size matters. Okay, so that brings us pretty much to the conclusion of this episode of So Chatty. There are some links in the show notes below. I've given you links to 3 Janome links, one for Janome Canada, one for Janome US, and one for Janome International. And that one has a lot of information on it that you can download that are not on the other two. So that's why I've given you the link to it. There is also a link to the Janome YouTube site as well because they do have a YouTube channel. There's a link to the Janome Skyline S7, the machine we talked about today, so you can check out the other features, and there's a brochure you can download for free on there that tells you all about the machine. There's a link to our favorite local sewing store, quilting store, Ultimate Sewing, and and Ultimate Sewing is an authorized Janome dealer, one of the best authorized dealers. And I'm not saying that just because I go there all the time, but yeah, Shirley, the owner of it, knows her machines. So if you have, if you're buying a brand new Janome, if you're in this area, or you can go on to her online store as well, and you can email her. She will ship to anywhere in Canada. Uh, so, if you've got questions, Shirley's the person to talk to. And there's a link to the book I talked about today, and there's a link to the latest episode of The Idiot Quilter. So, that's it for us this week. Next week, cover stitch and sergers, and we'll see you then. So, have a good week. Sew something nice.
Mm-hmm.
Bye bye for
Bye
now.
bye.